Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 8 Part 36 based on novel. So let's start. A purple-black light array suddenly appeared in a quiet space in a sparsely populated mountain range deep within the northwestern region of Eastern Xian region. The light array flickered before four figures rushed out from within before they arrived on a mountain peak. The four individuals arrived on a mountaintop. They panted a little before they surveyed their surroundings with a grave expression. How did we manage to shake them off? Lin Dong looked at little Martin and asked. Little Martin knitted his brows slightly. He mused, the person who is chasing after us should be one of the three great sect chiefs from Yuan Gate. When we leaped through space, I was able to detect that he was using a secret technique to track us. However, someone else has likely used another secret technique to disrupt him. Disrupt him? Lin Dong was momentarily startled. There was actually someone who dared to interrupt the secret technique of one of the three Yuan Gate sect chiefs? Yes. That person who intervened is also extremely powerful and he is definitely no ordinary individual. However, I do not know who he is and why he chose to help us. Little Martin frowned and said. Lin Dong also knitted his brows slightly. He mused for a moment before his pupil suddenly focused. He turned to look at Ying Huan. At this moment, the latter's bright large eyes were also staring back at him. Sect Master. Father. Two voices were simultaneously emitted from their mouths. There was hardly anyone in Eastern Xian region who could stop one of the three great sect chiefs in Yuan Gate. Furthermore, it was someone that would help them on his own accord. It was likely no one else but Ying Xuanzi. Oh? The sect master of Dao sect He. Little Martin was stunned for a moment. He immediately came to a sudden understanding and laughed. It seems like he is quite a good fellow. He actually would secretly lend us a hand. Lin Dong shrugged his shoulders before he glanced at Ying Huan. The reason why Ying Xuanzi intervened was likely because he had brought both Ying Huan and the Heavenly Phoenix thither along. It seems like bringing this girl along this time around was truly a wise decision. Otherwise, it was likely that they would have been in deep trouble today. Although Lin Dong was not afraid of anything, he was also aware that with their current strength, a head-on clash against a sect chief from Yuan Gate would likely be no different from a worm attempting to shake a tree. However, since Ying Xuanzi was able to sense that they were in danger, it was likely that he was also aware of the things that they had done. We are being snooped on. Lin Dong's expression turned unnatural for a moment. When she saw his expression, Ying Huan turned around somewhat guiltily. Ying Xuanzi was likely able to snoop on them because of the seal left within her Heavenly Phoenix zither. Lin Dong involuntarily laughed when he saw Ying Huan's guilty expression. He mused for a moment before clenching his hand. That Yuan spirit-like cluster that contained Elder Jiang's Yuan spirit appeared within his hand. Little Martin, can you set up some defenses first? I plan to completely remove the consciousness within this Yuan spirit first. Otherwise, that Yuan Gate sect chief might be able to track it. Lin Dong spoke to Little Martin. After experiencing the shocking tactics of the Yuan Gate sect chief, he had clearly become even more cautious. All right. Little Martin nodded when he heard this. The previous scene was indeed a little shocking. He pondered for a moment before speaking. Your Qiankun bag should still have nirvana pills, right? Since there was a pill river within the sect, there was no need to use the nirvana pills that were obtained from the ancient battlefield. I should still have over 20 million nirvana pills. Lin Dong tossed his Qiankun bag to Little Martin and said. Just this pitiful amount? I would require at least 40 million nirvana pills to set up a major formation. Little Martin frowned and said. Lin Dong nearly spat out a mouthful of fresh blood when he heard his words. He stared at Little Martin with wide eyes. Setting up a large formation would require 40 million nirvana pills? Why was it that this fellow was getting greedier and greedier? If it was not because Lin Dong trusted him, it was likely that he would suspect that this fellow wanted to secretly take a cut. Please, think about the status of that Yuan Gate sect chief. If I do not completely disrupt the natural Yuan energy, he would definitely sense something when you remove that Elder Jiang's consciousness. Little Martin spoke helplessly. Lindong was speechless. He spoke in a depressed manner, I only have these nirvana pills. Little Martin was also a little speechless. It was unexpected that after having muddled around for so long, Lindong only had this amount of assets. Standing beside them, Little Flame rubbed his head when he saw the two depressed individuals. He shut his mouth and did not speak. Usually, when he was with the two of them, he did not need to worry about issues like managing nirvana pills. All he had to do was to train and fight. If it is nirvana pills, I do have some here. While Lindong and Little Martin were both feeling helpless, the young lady standing beside them suddenly widened her large eyes. She opened her mouth and spoke. After which, she tossed a red Qiankun bag over to them just as they suddenly turned around to look at her. Little Martin caught Ying Huan's Qiankun bag. His mental energy swept over it before his brows twitched immediately. He smilingly said, "You are indeed the daughter of the Tao sect's master. There are at least 40 million nirvana pills inside." 40 million? Lindong rubbed his nose. He glanced at Ying Huan and said, "I couldn't tell that you are a wealthy little princess. Your words are really sour." Ying Huan wrinkled her upturned nose and laughingly said. Lindong's face reddened. He did feel a little uneven within his heart. He could only amass this small sum despite having struggled bitterly over the years. However, in the end, all the other party had to do was to randomly toss a little bit and it instantly made him feel like a pauper. Standing beside them, Little Martin took her Qiankun bag. He ignored those two as he flicked his finger. A bright red pill tide came whistling out from the Qiankun bag. After which, it was just like a bright red large dragon flashing across the sky as it began to rotate. Waves after waves of frightening nirvana chi were unleashed and it directly shook the natural Yuan power in this place. Even the space itself was gradually distorted. Numerous light rays spread down and covered this mountain where Lindong's group was located. "You can begin now." Little Martin clapped his hand and told Lindong. Lindong's expression turned increasingly grave when he heard this. Immediately, that light cluster slowly rose in his hand. At this moment, the black light rays also quickly scattered. Swoosh! With the removal of the light ray, the light cluster suddenly split apart and a golden light rushed out from within. It quickly began to flee. "Where are you headed to?" Lindong smiled faintly when he saw this scene. He opened his mouth before an unusual ancient black symbol shot out from it. It immediately appeared in the sky above the golden light and directly transformed into a circular rotating black hole. Devouring power covered the golden light. Devouring power? You actually possess the devouring ancestral symbol. A sharp and horrified scream was emitted in an ear-piercing fashion when the golden light was gradually being absorbed by the black hole. You actually dare to refine me? The sect chief will definitely sense it. None of you will be able to escape then. At the brink of death, yet you still say so much nonsense. Lindong's eyes turned slightly chilly before his seal technique changed. That black hole's rotational speed suddenly increased and the devouring power wildly eroded that Yuan spirit. It erased the consciousness within a little at a time. Stop. Don't erase my consciousness. I don't want to die. Following the erosion of the overbearing devouring power, the consciousness of Elder Jiang was clearly being gradually erased. Numerous sharp miserable screams were continuously being emitted from within. However, Lindong did not care. His eyes were cold and indifferent as he circulated his devouring power to continuously remove the consciousness within. While Lindong activated the devouring ancestral symbol to erase Elder Jiang's consciousness, Little Martin's eyes suddenly glanced at Ying Huan. Immediately, he withdrew them. Since Lindong had activated the devouring ancestral symbol in front of her, it was likely that he trusted her. In that case, there was no need for him to say anything. He was aware that Lindong always acted in a cautious fashion and he would not easily trust anyone. However, since he had chose to show it to her, he clearly treated her as one of them. This process continued for half a day. Only after did little Martin sense that the consciousness within the Yuan spirit had completely disappeared. Buzz. An extremely obscure ripple erupted from within the Yuan spirit just before the consciousness within it completely disappeared. However, when it was about to spread, it was blocked by the light ray that poured down from the sky. Finally, it disappeared from this world. It refuses to go peacefully even after death. Little Martin watched this scene indifferently. However, he was secretly relieved that he had set up a formation. Otherwise, should that fluctuation be emitted, it would definitely be sensed by that Yuan Gate sect chief. At that time, it was likely that they would have to flee again. Swoosh! Lin Dong sat down. He beckoned with his hand before a cluster of bright golden light flew out from the black hole and landed on his right palm. Soon after, he clenched his left hand before the golden baby-shaped earth core spiritual brewing saliva appeared in a flash. Huff! Lin Dong's right hand held the Yuan spirit, which had its consciousness removed, while his left hand held the golden baby. He exhaled a deep breath before slowly shutting his eyes. This time around, he wanted to borrow the help of these two items to form an initial Yuan spirit. The enormous light array transformed into countless number of light rays in the sky. It covered the entire place and poured down. Lin Dong quietly sat within the large array. His right hand held the Yuan spirit, which had its consciousness removed, while his left hand was holding the golden baby. Numerous rich golden lights continued to seep out from these two items. Finally, they continuously tunneled into Lin Dong's body. Following the pouring in of these golden light, a circular faint golden arc was being formed on the surface of Lin Dong's body. Meanwhile, a mysterious ripple slowly scattered from it. Little Martin looked at Lin Dong, who had entered into training mode, before he slowly nodded. Although Lin Dong had yet to form even a trace of Yuan spirit within his body, by borrowing the Yuan spirit of an expert at the advanced mysterious life stage and the earth core spiritual brewing saliva, it was likely that he had a 70% chance of forming an initial Yuan spirit. But both of you should also take this opportunity to refine the earth core spiritual brewing saliva. Little Martin's eyes turned towards Little Flame and Ying Huan before he smilingly said, "Yes." Little Flame immediately nodded upon hearing this. Currently, the natural Yuan power in this place was sufficiently powerful. Along with Little Martin's protection, it made this place an extremely ideal spot to undertake a retreat and train. Hence, he did not hesitate, pulled back and found a rock. He sat on it and clenched his hand before his earth core spiritual brewing saliva appeared. Its resplendent golden light caused the surrounding green leaves to be covered by a layer of faint golden powder. Ying Huan glanced at Little Flame. At this moment, her hand was also holding onto the earth core spiritual brewing saliva. However, she hesitated for a moment. Her pair of bright bewitching large eyes had an expression of great loss flashing over it without her even noticing. However, that state of mind merely lasted for an instant. Ying Huan also nodded slightly before she shut both her eyes. She held the earth core spiritual brewing saliva and began training. Little Martin's eyes turned away from Little Flame's body before they paused on the young lady a short distance away. After which, he frowned slightly. His celestial demon Martin body blessed him with an extremely sensitive perception. Ying Huan might not realized it when that bewildered expression flashed deep within her eyes, but Little Martin sensed an extremely strange and obscure fluctuation. This girl is not as simple as she looks on the surface. Little Martin muttered to himself. That fluctuation was extremely obscure and even he could not probe deeper. Although he could not understand why that was the case, it was clear that the young lady in front of him was not as simple as she seems. Perhaps the underlying reason was something that even she herself was unaware of. However, Little Martin did not dwell on this issue. Regardless of Ying Huan's background, as long as she did not hold any ill intent towards Lin Dong, Little Martin would not care. Time began to swiftly flow by after the three of them entered into training. The sun rose and set. Within the blink of an eye, 1 month had passed in this manner. Little Martin did not leave this mountain during this 1 month. This place was also one which was sparsely populated. Other than those who occasionally passed by, this place was rather desolated. This desolation was exactly what Lin Dong's group needed. Little Martin was seated quietly within the light array. At this moment, his eyes were locked onto Lin Dong. The Yuan spirit and Earth Core spiritual brewing saliva on the latter's hands had paled by half compared to 1 month ago. However, as it turned pale, the golden light that covered Lin Dong's body also became increasingly resplendent. Looking from a distance away, it appeared as though there was a layer of golden armor covering him. Although the golden light on Lin Dong's body was becoming increasingly bright, the Yuan spirit did not agglomerate like he had expected. Has he yet to fill up his Yuan Dan? Little Martin frowned slightly when he saw this scene. Yuan Dan brewed the spirit. If he was unable to fill his Yuan Dan till the saturation point, it was naturally impossible for the Yuan spirit to be brewed. Buzz buzz. Under Little Martin's careful observation, the golden baby and the Yuan spirit on Lin Dong's hands continued to transform into traces of golden energy. It followed Lin Dong's hands and entered his body. If it was possible to see the interior of Lin Dong's body at this moment, one would see 2 golden energies flowing in from the meridians on both of his hands. After which, they would be circulated along the meridians before they flowed into his golden Yuan Dan, which was suspended within his dantian. A black swirl was rotating above the Yuan Dan. Powerful devouring force was emitted from within. 2 golden torrents were completely thrown into the swirl. After which, it agglomerated into an increasingly bright golden light on the other side of the swirl. It was just like a dark golden light that surged into the round golden Yuan Dan. Following the pouring in of that mighty strength, his Yuan Dan also swiftly swelled at a rate visible to the naked eye. Even the luster on its surface became increasingly rich. Although the size of his Yuan Dan and its color was slowly changing, his spirit did not break through his Yuan Dan as expected. Lin Dong's mind calmly observed this scene, though he did not feel overly disappointed in his heart. He was aware that since he was merely at 6 Yuan Nirvana stage, it was impossible for him to even produce Yuan spirit force, much less talk about forming an initial Yuan spirit. Although there was a powerful Yuan spirit of an advanced mysterious life stage expert to aid him, it was still much more difficult for him to form a Yuan spirit when compared to Ying Huan. At this juncture, only by waiting patiently would it be possible for him to succeed. Another half a month quietly passed while Lin Dong quietly trained. Moreover, after that half a month passed, Lin Dong was a little sad to discover that he had already finished absorbing the Earth Core spiritual brewing saliva. This is like a pig that only eats without growing. Lin Dong felt a little grieved and irritated as he saw that his Yuan Dan did not exhibit any actual changes despite having absorbed so much energy. His heart involuntarily cursed angrily. This time around, he no longer had the Earth Core spiritual brewing saliva. With just a Yuan spirit alone, it was likely quite difficult for him to form an initial Yuan spirit. After swearing twice within his heart, Lin Dong could only helplessly shake his head. However, just when he was about to stop training, he suddenly sensed his hand turn cool. Soon after, another wave of powerful Earth Core spiritual brewing saliva energy flowed into his body. This unexpected change caused Lin Dong to be startled. Immediately, he seemed to have understood something as a warm sensation flowed through his heart. Each of them had gotten one of the 4 Earth Core spiritual brewing saliva. It was likely that Little Flame and Ying Huan were currently using theirs. Hence, the only one remaining was likely the one in Little Martin's possession. Lin Dong exhaled gently within his heart as he gradually rid the traces of irritation within his heart. After which, he focused his mind and quietly absorbed the 2nd Earth Core spiritual brewing saliva. The absorption process this time around merely lasted for 1 week. When the final trace of energy from the 2nd Earth Core spiritual brewing saliva converged with the Yuan spirit force and quietly flowed into his dark golden Yuan Dan, which already occupied half of his dantian, that Yuan Dan, which had remained quiet for a long time, finally trembled. Buzz buzz. When that slight quivering sound spread within Lin Dong's dantian, his mind was instantly alerted. After which, his heart was joyous as he stared intently at his trembling Yuan Dan. At this moment, the luster on the surface of his dantian was so rich that it appeared to be pure gold in color. At a glance, it appeared like a bright golden egg. Currently, this golden egg was continuously trembling. Crack! As his golden Yuan Den shook violently, an extremely slight but pleasing sound suddenly appeared. One could see that there were numerous small cracks appearing on the surface of his Yuan Dan at this moment. Crack, crack. The crack line spread at a shocking speed. Soon, it had spread to the entire surface of the Yuan Dan. There was a vague golden light shooting out from within those cracks. Even with Lin Dong's temperament, he turned excited when he saw this scene. After having fed it for so long, this greedy thing finally had a response. The bright golden light finally reached its densest level before his entire Yuan Dan completely split apart. Golden light whizzed apart within the Dantian. Lin Dong's attention was focused intently on the middle as the golden light whizzed forth. Golden light continuously gathered at that spot before a palm-sized golden illusionary figure finally appeared slowly. Lin Dong's body immediately trembled intensely when this golden illusionary figure appeared. An extremely mysterious feeling suddenly sprouted forth within his body. At that instant, he was able to sense his soul and flesh being separated. However, there were still tens of thousands winding ripples rising within his heart. Is this a Yuan spirit? Lin Dong's mind watched the golden illusory figure appearing in his dantian while he muttered to himself. His voice was filled with unconcealable excitement. The golden light whizzed and spread within the dantian. That palm-sized golden illusory figure appeared to have been formed from within the golden flame. It trembled slightly and extended outwards. Buzz buzz. As that small golden illusory figure slowly grew, those golden lights that had originally shot out suddenly froze at this moment. After which, they ricocheted at a shocking speed before they finally rushed back into the tiny golden illusory figure. Kai? The latter's small body vaguely became a little more lifelike the moment that final trace of golden light entered the golden figure. At this moment, one could faintly discern the appearance of that illusory golden light figure. Its appearance and features were basically identical to that of Lin Dong. However, that figure was shrunk by many times. From the looks of it, it seemed simple, honest, and cute. It looked somewhat different from Lin Dong's actual self. The Yuan spirit agglomerated. However, it was still quite fictitious. Strictly speaking, Lin Dong's Yuan spirit was not fully developed and it was a little lacking compared with the Yuan spirit that was agglomerated by the experts at the mysterious life stage. However, since Lin Dong was only at 6 Yuan Nirvana stage, he still had quite a lot of time to hone and refine his Yuan spirit. This would be greatly beneficial to him when he advanced into the mysterious life stage in the future. After Lin Dong's Yuan spirit absorbed all the golden light within his dantian, he finally began to descend slowly. Soon after, he landed on the dragon Yuan ring below. His knees were bent before he sat down. His miniature hands also formed a mysterious training seal at this moment. Bang! A strange muffled thunder seemed to suddenly resound within Lin Dong's body the moment the Yuan spirit training seal had been formed. Waves after waves of galloping torrent-like majestic energy suddenly swept out from within the Yuan spirit. Finally, it coursed along the meridians within Lin Dong's body. These energies coursed through the meridians. At the same time, waves after wave of energy charged directly to Lin Dong's mind. Finally, it entered into his Niwen place in an overbearing fashion. Immediately, a monstrous storm was raised within it. Buzz buzz. Golden light spread over every part of Lin Dong's body and they wrapped around the small world within his Niwen place. Lin Dong could also clearly sense that the Yuan power and mental energy within his body were soaring in an extremely shocking fashion. This was a feedback from the Yuan spirit. The Yuan Dan of the past no longer existed as the Yuan spirit had replaced it. Clearly, with regards to being a center for Yuan power, the Yuan spirit was undoubtedly a more powerful and evolved version. In contrast to the amount of Yuan power required to activate the Yuan Dan in the past in order to achieve a certain offensive impact, the current Yuan spirit merely needed half of it. This was the obvious gap between the two. Bang bang. Vast and mighty Yuan power as well as mental energy coursed wildly through Lin Dong's body and his Niwen palace. In the face of this skyrocketing strength, Lin Dong quickly sensed an invisible barrier that seemed to be blocking him, in an attempt to block his Yuan power and mental energy to continue advancing. Lin Dong laughed softly when he sensed that obstruction. After which, a low mutter that was accompanied by some wild heat suddenly sounded. Breakthrough. Bang! The moment Lin Dong muttered within his heart, an extremely wild and violent heated ripple suddenly erupted from within his body. Black nirvana flames appeared to have surged out from within his flesh. After which, they began a wild and violent rampage. The next nirvana tribulation had finally arrived once again. Wild and violent black nirvana flames raged fearlessly. The meridians within Lin Dong's body and his bones once again had some dense green scales appearing on them, blocking the destruction from the flames. Swoosh! At the same time, the Yuan spirit that was sitting on the dragon Yuan ring within his dantian also slowly opened its tightly shut eyes. Golden light permeated those eyes before a unique pressure spread. Swoosh! The Yuan spirit slowly lifted his small hands before a golden light ray rushed out explosively from his hand. Finally, it swept towards the rising black flames. The black flames seemed to have been pressured when that golden light rushed over as they gradually weakened. Having a Yuan spirit clearly provided an extremely great boost when dealing with the Nirvana tribulation. Lin Dong's heart suddenly moved when he was facing the Nirvana tribulation within his body. After which, his seated body on the mountaintop slowly opened his eyes, which had been shut tightly for a long time. After both his eyes opened, Lin Dong's eyes immediately looked at the sky. There were storm clouds gathering at that spot. Silver snakes swam within the dark clouds, emitting a loud rumbling noise. Wind lightning tribulation. Lin Dong looked at the gathering storm clouds. However, his eyes did not contain the slightest tinge of shock. It was likely that he was already numb towards experiencing a twin tribulation. Dense black light whizzed out from Lin Dong's head. After which, it directly transformed into an enormous ancient symbol. The symbol rotated, transforming into a black hole that directly rushed towards the storm clouds. Rumble. The dark cloud immediately churned wildly after the devouring ancestral symbol charged within. A loud and clear thunder roar rumbled and resounded over the place, shaking this mountaintop until it trembled repeatedly. However, not a single thunderbolt fell. This fellow seems to have gained increased mastery over the devouring ancestral symbol on the mountaintop. When little Martin saw this scene, he involuntarily smiled and said. Beside little Martin was little Flame, whose figure was just like a metal tower. At this moment, he had also withdrew from his training state. Moreover, it seemed like his aura had been greatly strengthened after this training. It seems like this wind lightning tribulation is unable to pose even the slightest threat for Big Brother. Little Flame parted his mouth and smiled. Little Martin nodded gently. Being in possession of a divine object like the devouring ancestral symbol and having successfully agglomerated a Yuan spirit, even a Nirvana tribulation and wind lightning trial arriving together would no longer pose much problems for Lin Dong. This development of the matter was also just like what the Little Martin duo had expected. Following the wild manner in which the devouring ancestral symbol charged into the wind lightning trial, the wild and violent energy contained within the latter also disappeared at a shocking pace. Clearly, it was being devoured by the devouring ancestral symbol. Rumble. After the final muffled thunder sound appeared, the storm clouds in the sky finally completely scattered. The devouring ancestral symbol rushed back and entered Lin Dong's Niwen palace. Soon after, a wave of invisible majestic fluctuation spread apart like a storm with Lin Dong at the middle. Lin Dong suddenly opened both of his eyes when the majestic mental energy swept apart. After which, he heavily slammed his palm onto the ground in front of him. Bang! The palm fell and an enormous cracked line immediately erupted. Within the blink of an eye, it had extended towards the edge of the mountain. Immediately, the mountain began to sway a little. Wild and violent Yuan power and mental energy whistled around Lin Dong while golden light flickered from both of his eyes. This continued for quite a while before it gradually scattered. Huff! The glaring golden light disappeared before Lin Dong slowly spat out a mouthful of hot air. After which, he stood up. His body moved and some crackling sound was emitted. A majestic force quietly surged like a shocking thunder. 7 Yuan Nirvana stage. 6 Seal Heavenly Symbol Master. With the agglomeration of his Yuan spirit, Lin Dong's strength had undoubtedly soared once again this time around. Not bad. Standing beside him, when little Martin's eyes scanned Lin Dong's body, a tinge of shock flashed across his eyes before he smilingly nodded. Thanks. Lin Dong grinned at little Martin. The Earth Core spiritual brewing saliva isn't of much help to me. Little Martin laughed faintly. Subsequently, his eyes looked towards a certain direction with some surprise. He softly said, moreover, compared to you, it is likely that she is even more worrisome. Lin Dong was startled upon hearing these words as he hurriedly turned his head. His pupils shrunk slightly when he saw the young lady seated on a rock. Her ponytail was scattered while her jet black hair had turned into a somewhat strange icy blue color. This video will end here.